tongue. The different parts of the tongue. What are the parts of the tongue? There is a tip of the tongue or apex of the tongue. There you see apex of tip. And if there is apex, there should be base, just opposite side base of the tongue. Dorsal surface, which we generally see, dorsal surface of the tongue, ventral surface or inferior surface of the tongue, and lateral margin of the tongue. So these are the features of the tongue: tip or apex, base, superior, dorsal surface, ventral or inferior surface, lateral margin, as well as root of the tongue. Root of the tongue. Where lies the root of the tongue? Where lies the root of the tongue? Root of the tongue connects tongue with which structure? কাকে কানেক্ট করছে রুট? রুট কাকে কানেক্ট করছে? টাঙের সাথে কার কানেকশন? রুট। ফ্লোর অফ দি মাউথ। Floor of the mouth. Here you see root of the tongue. And root of the tongue is formed by which muscle? Root of the tongue is formed by which muscle? Now let us enumerate the extrinsic muscles of the tongue. As you have already completed dissection, you are well acquainted with these terms. What are the external muscles of the tongue? Which will end with glossus. They are all tongue muscles. One muscle is coming from behind, from the stylolate process to the tongue. That means styloglossus. Styloglossus. One muscle is coming from the mental tubercle to the tongue. That is genioglossus. So styloglossus, genioglossus. From side of the tongue to the hyoid process, that is hyoglossus. From the tongue to the palate, that is palatoglossus. There is another muscle, chondroglossus. It is not so important, it is the detached part of the hyoglossus. So these are the four muscles of the external muscles of the tongue. What is the function of the external muscles of the tongue? बोलो, external muscles of the tongue का function क्या है? There are two types of muscle, external muscle and internal muscle. Internal muscle is confined within the substance of the tongue. It has got no bony attachment. And external muscle has got at one side bony attachment and at other side tongue attachment. So, external muscles of the tongue, it performs the movement of the tongue. It moves the tongue. It actually moves the tongue. And internal muscles of the tongue, they change the shape of the tongue. So internal muscle change the shape of the tongue and external muscle move the tongue. Now out of these four external muscles of the tongue, which one protract? Which one retract the tongue? Retract means pull behind. So which muscle, external muscles, will pull the tongue behind? The stylolate process lies behind. So from behind it is coming to the front. If it contracts from behind, then what will happen? Tongue will move forward or backward? Backward. That means retraction. Retraction of the tongue is done by styloglossus. One muscle is attached to the genial tubercle. It is lies at the front, and it is from the front is going behind. So if that muscle contracts, what movement will occur? Protrusion of the tongue. So genioglossus will cause protrusion of the tongue. One is coming from soft palate to the tongue. That means from above to the tongue. If that muscle contracts, then what will happen? Tongue move to which direction? Above. And hyoglossus. It is directed downwards from the tongue to the hyoid bone that lies below the tongue. So if it contracts, to which direction tongue will move? Below. So these are the movements of the tongue. Now come to the intrinsic muscles. What muscles called intrinsic? Which is only confined to the tongue and it has got no bony attachment. So there is superior longitudinal lies towards the longitudinal muscle, means along the length of the tongue it is oriented superficially towards the dorsal surface, and inferior longitudinal means at the lower towards the inferior surface. They are longitudinal muscles. If they contract, suppose if the superior longitudinal muscles contract, then what will happen to the shape of the tongue? The tongue will concave. Tongue will concave. It is lies towards the dorsal surface. If that contract, the tongue will concave. And if the longitudinal muscle or inferior longitudinal muscles contract, that will convex the tongue. Right? And the transverse muscles, they are oriented transversely. If they contract, which will happen? It will be narrow. It will be narrow and long. And if the vertical muscles, which is connecting the superficial surface, I mean dorsal surface and inferior surface vertically, if they contract, which will happen? It will flatten the tongue. Very easy to understand. It is no difficult thing. So these are the muscles of the tongue. Now come to the dorsal surface of the tongue. You know dorsal surface of the tongue. Here you find there is a this is anterior 2/3 of the tongue. That is the posterior third of the tongue. This is epiglottis. This is median glosso-epiglottic fold. This is lateral glossoepiglottic fold. The space between this, it is known as vallecula. Vallecula. Epiglottic vallecula. Now you know that tongue is divided into anterior third and posterior third, anterior third and posterior one third by this group. The name of this group is, what is the name? Sulcus terminalis. This is sulcus terminalis. Sulcus terminalis. The two limb of the sulcus terminalis converge into a foramen that is called foramen cecum. Foramen cecum. So this is if you are asked to describe the dorsal surface of the tongue, you have to draw this diagram. Now, the dorsal surface of the tongue is how it looks. It is divided into two, anterior two third, posterior one third. Now the difference between anterior two third and posterior third. The anterior two third, you will see that it is smooth or rough. Anterior two third is smooth or rough. How it looks? Anterior two third, is it smooth or rough? बोलो, तुम्हारा टंग का एंटीरियर टू थर्ड कोई देखा? इट इज रफ और स्मूथ? रफ रोज तो ऐसे करता है ना, तो देखा तो स्मूथ नहीं तो रफ. Why it is rough? Anterior two third of the tongue is rough. Why? Velvety. It is actually velvety. Why? Because of the presence of papillae. What are the now come papillae? How many types of papillae are there? There are Filiform Papillae, Fungiform Papillae, Circumvallate Papillae, and Foliate Papillae. The foliate papillae is not well developed in man. So there are mainly 4 kinds of papillae. Out of these four types, which one is numerous? Which one is numerous? Fungiform, filiform, or circumvallate? Filiform. Maximum papillae are filiform. Filiform papillae. Now, it doesn't contain any taste bud. The upper one, this one. Here you see this thing is a lamina propria. So papillae, how papillae is formed? It is the projection of the lamina propria covered by epithelium. That is called papillae. So within the papillae you will get lamina propria. Now what kind of epithelium covers the papilla? I mean the nature of the epithelium of the mouth cavity. What type it is? Squamous, columnar, transitional, what type? Squamous. Mouth cavity is, mucous membrane of the mouth cavity is your squamous epithelium. Is it keratinized or non-keratinized? Is it keratinized or non-keratinized?
Non-keratinized.
Why? Because it is moist. Where there is moisture, there it will be non-keratinized. But the apex of the Filiform papillae, the apex of the Filiform papillae is covered by keratinized epithelium. You will remember this. All other parts covered by non-keratinized is squamous epithelium, but the apex of the Filiform papillae, only the apex is covered by keratinized. If you are given histology slide, this question may be asked. Right? Now, next is Fungiform Papillae. Here you see Fungiform Papillae, middle one is Fungiform Papillae. This looks like mushroom, mushroom, narrow base, broad apex. Right? So, this is Fungiform Papillae, and this Fungiform Papillae lies along the lateral margin, and it lies in between Fungiform Papillae, and it looks like red dots, and it actually projects upwards from the Filiform Papillae. Filiform Papillae খানিকটা উঁচু, সেই জন্য it projects upwards from the Filiform Papillae, and it looks like a red dot because it is highly vascular. Because of its vascularity, if you see your own tongue in the mirror, you will find the red dot that is called Fungiform Papillae. The Fungiform Papillae here you see on its surface, convex surface, you are seeing taste bud. So this contains taste bud, but Filiform Papillae does not contain any taste bud. What function it performs? Filiform Papillae function কি? জিজ্ঞাসা করে বলতে হবে ওতে টেস্ট বার আছে, তার টেস্ট করছিস, শুনছিস না কি নাকি? ফিলিফর্মে কোনো টেস্ট বার আছে, তার টেস্ট কী করে আসবে? হ্যাঁ, it provides rough surface, so it helps in the mastication of food between tongue and palate. It is rough surface, so it helps in the mastication of food. Number 2, Fungiform Papillae, as it contains taste bud, so it carries taste sensation. Right? Now come to the another important papillae, that is Circumvallate Papillae, the lowest one. This lowest one, Circumvallate Papillae, where it lies? It lies along the margin of the sulcus terminalis, anteriorly along the margin of sulcus terminalis. Here lies the Circumvallate Papillae. There are about 18 to 16 circumvallate papillae. Now you have to know the difference between the circumvallate papillae and Fungiform Papillae. In circumvallate papillae, suppose this is the circumvallate papillae. There is a trench. There is a sulcus around the circumvallate papillae. There is a sulcus around this is the sulcus. Sulcus is all around the circumvallate papillae. So there is a sulcus. This sulcus, the wall of the sulcus, here you see the wall of the sulcus. This is the wall of the sulcus, contains taste bud. But here in Fungiform Papillae, it was present on the convex surface, but here lies in the sulcus, round sulcus around the circumvallate papillae, and it also narrow base and broad upper end. Base is narrow, but upper end towards the dorsal surface, that is broad, right? So this is called circumvallate papillae, and why it is named? Because of its circular sulcus, so it has been named. Sulcus is also known as velium, so it is called circumvallate, right? So if short note comes, papilla of the tongue, you have to write all these things. Now come to the foliate papillae. Foliate papillae is not well developed in man, but it is well developed in rabbit. It lies along the sulcus terminalis, where terminalis touches the lateral border. There it is present as a vertical fold. Here it is present as some vertical folds, like this. It is called foliate papillae. Foliate papillae. Right. So these are about the dorsal surface. Now come to the ventral surface. Here you see this picture. Actually, it has been taken. You have raised your tongue. You have touched the palate of your tongue, and you are seeing from the front. That means you are seeing the inferior aspect of the tongue. This picture is the inferior aspect of the tongue. Now, what are the features on the inferior aspect of the tongue? You see a midline. There is a fold of mucus that is called frenulum of the tongue. Frenulum of the tongue is a mucus fold, and on either side of the frenulum there is a wavy mucus fold. Wavy mucus fold at the lateral most. That is called plica fimbriata. And in between plica fimbriata and frenulum tongue, there is a vein, that is deep dorsal vein. So these are the features of the under surface or inferior surface of the tongue, right? Now here you see there are two openings of sublingual salivary gland at the lower end of this frenulum lingui, right? This circular opening, it is the opening of the sublingual salivary gland. Now again come to the dorsal surface of the tongue. Now I will talk about the posterior third of the tongue. You see the above diagram, the posterior third of the tongue. Here the mucous membrane is, if you compare the mucous membrane of the anterior third and posterior one third, the mucous membrane of the posterior one third is, it will be thick or thin. It will be thin. The posterior third of the tongue is covered by mucous membrane that is thin in comparison with the anterior two third, right? But here you will find some nodular appearance, because these nodules are, you will see mirror, you will see your tongue. You will find the nodular appearance. These nodules because of lymphatic follicles, because of numerous lymphatic follicles that are actually projecting. Because of this lymphatic follicle, it has become nodular. This lymphatic follicle is known as lingual tonsil. Lingual tonsil. This lingual tonsil forms, it is one of the components of Walde's ring. You know Walde's ring? Have you heard the name of Walde's ring? You will know later on, but it forms one of the components of the Walde's ring. Forms our defense system, right? So the characteristic of this is, now does the tongue contain salivary gland? Does the tongue contain salivary gland? Tongue contain mucous gland. Salivary, mucous gland. Salivary means mucus. The anterior third, the gland is the nature of the gland just below the circumvallate papillae. Where circumvallate papillae lies, just beneath that you will get the serous gland. You will get serous gland. এর নাম হচ্ছে ফন এবনার গ্ল্যান্ডস। ফন উচ্চারণ VON, ফন VON, ফন হবে না, ফন এবনার্স গ্ল্যান্ড। That fon Ebner's gland you will find just below the circumvallate papillae, and its duct will open. Its duct will open on the floor of this circular sulcus. It will open on the floor of the circular sulcus, right? Then come to the anterior two-third. Here you will get gland mucoserous. On the anterior two-third you will get mucoserous gland that will remain within the muscle fibers. And on the posterior third you will get mucous glands. Posterior third mucous gland. In the region of the circumvallate papillae you will get serous gland, that is called von Ebner gland, and at the anterior third you will get mucoserous gland, right? So these are the glands. Now posterior third, again come to the posterior third. Here you see there are two depression, yellow color. Here you see two yellow color depression. Number one, there is a mucosal fold from the it extends from the foramen cecum up to the epiglottis. That is called median epiglottic fold. Median epiglottic fold. And on either side there is lateral glossoepiglottic fold. Median glossoepiglottic fold and lateral glossoepiglottic fold. Within these two, this space is known as vallecula. That is known as vallecula, right?